Hi, Mari. I'm so excited to have you here. And as always, we're going to jump directly into the first question. How did your leadership journey begin?
Hi, first of all, Erica, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be with you here. My leadership begins like long time ago, probably about like, I don't know, like 15 to 20 to 15 years ago, because one thing that I've been trying to do when I started my career is like, I always thought that you can be a leader anywhere where you are in the corporation, right? Or in your business. So
Okay.
since I was more involved in the marketing field, even started in very entry or mid-entry level positions, I always found that that was what the future was calling to me to lead people. And at that time, I was leading peers, I was leading agencies. So being
No.
exposed to different type of people and also at the same time learn from them, it speaks about the type of the leadership that I was, I don't know, thinking for the future to build for myself. So I was blessed enough as well to work in companies that they allowed me also to lead from the bottom to the top, which I think that was a great opportunity that I lived, that not necessarily is the same situation for everyone else. But I believe that the leadership spirit should be inside of each of us. It's all about curiosity, and it's all about how do you want to portray yourself, right? At the end of the day, with the corporation, but most important, with the people that surrounded you.
It's really, truly all about the people. And I love how you said you learned how to lead from the bottom to the top. So leadership was always part of your life. It didn't matter the role you held, you were leading and probably being curious about others from the very beginning. What is your current leadership role?
Currently, I'm leading a group of marketing and e-commerce. So I'm responsible for the strategies, communication, all of the sales that are related with our e-commerce business. I right now work for a company that they are the number one grower of plants, indoor and outdoor, for United States. So it's very interesting when you are selling a product that is a live goods, right? It's a perishable product. So for us, it's extremely important that every time that we bring out at the stores and also in online our products, we move that product quickly so the consumers can get the product fresh from our farm and enjoy their plants in their space. Either it's a indoor plant or outdoor plant. So as part of my current leadership, as I mentioned, I'm in charge of strategies, but also we do we also work with consumer marketing and voice of the consumers, which is the area where we receive a lot of input and feedback from our consumers, from the products that they're receiving, the products that they bought in the different channels and touch points. And it's interesting because sometimes people don't come to you. Usually when they're going to say good things about your product, they come to you with a problem, right? Or a challenge. And one thing that I admire the most from the team that I lead in is the way that they transform that negative energy that comes from the consumer into a very positive by opening to them a very safe space of listening to their issue and addressing their issue in a very neutral way, but at the same time very caring. So have that opportunity to have that peace within my leadership. I'm very honored. I'm humble because usually what makes companies very successful are consumers, right? Are the people that are buying your products, and have the opportunity to, in a daily way, you're working with your team, improving that communication, improving that messaging and that relationship. it's very gratifying.
You brought up the idea of communication. What role do you feel communication plays in how well a leader leads?
A lot. And when I say communication, people tend to mislead the communication concept a lot. Like by saying, "Oh no, that's an introvert person. That's an extrovert person." That nothing has to do with your personality. I think the key of success, at least on my point of view, and in my experience that I always try to apply, is the transparency through that communication, right? And being transparent, you don't need to be extrovert or anything, or introvert or anything. It's just being very, very clear with your communication, right? If there is any situation, just make sure that you communicate that situation. You don't need a book to communicate that situation. It could be communicating a couple of words and sentence, but it needs to communicate transparent with a lot of honesty. The same thing, not only with the good, but also not only with the bad, but also with the good things. Meanwhile, more you communicate, you're going to keep people more involved and more exposure of what you do. And through the communication is the only way that you can also explain to your teams, to your agency, to all of that network that you have, internal and externally, what is your vision? And how you're going to end it up with your vision, what you are trying to be an outcome from the work that you have putting down, right? So I think that communication is extremely important. Written, verbally, right? In person, online, like nowadays it's more online. But it's so funny because a lot of people say, "Oh my gosh, now it's so complicated to engage people through the computers," for example. I know it's a very controversial topic, but I truly believe that there is a way to engage with people also through the computer, right? Through the cameras. Let's open those safe spaces. Let's turn on the cameras. Let's have to establish the communication, because at the end of the day, the world is going to keep changing, and we need to find out how to develop skills to communicate in different settings and with different type of people as well.
Well, you mentioned different type of people. I think of even different generations.
Generations, correct. Yes, and being inclusive and at the same time, one piece that I believe that is extremely important in communication is about listening, right? Because it's not always talking, right? It's also know how to just put the zipper on and observe and listening to other people as well, and learn from them.
So you mentioned listening and learning from others. What is a piece of feedback that you received from a direct report that you will never forget? Something you've never forgotten, and what did it teach you?
It's so funny because before to answer that, I'm going to say one thing. In Innovation Insights, it is kind of like, it's a technique that they define your personality. I don't know if you heard about it. It's very interesting. They call it the color of personalities. My colors are red, yellow, green, and blue. And each of the color has, let's say, a meaning, right? For red, usually is a person that is very straightforward, right? So you don't sugarcoat things. You always being direct, and it's true. And because of that personality, sometimes there is people that, because you say things like so straight, etc., that could be misinterpreted, right? Like you're too upfront or too direct, right? And you could make feel other people like intimidated. And one of my direct reports a couple of years ago told me, like, "Mari, you always say things like ba 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 ba," and you're like, so it's like, I don't know, sometimes if you are probably, mad or this and that, should you at least, bring a little bit more like share or add it a little bit softened, right? When you are direct, which is, I found out that it was a fantastic feedback for me, right? And it is interesting because when I took that test of the innovation discovered from my personality, red has a lot of good things and positive things, right, in terms of communication. But one of the biggest opportunities for people that are red is always make sure to do two things. Number one, listening. And number two, be empathic with the person that is receiving the information. So that's something that is very, very interesting. And I always encourage people to do those tests to understand you, but not only you, the other people as well. So right now, after that experience, I always try to run those personality tests with my team members. So I would like to understand them better on how they want me to deliver the message to them. Like, for example, when you have people that is very blue at the first color, those people are very, very, very analytical. And telling things in 1, 2, 3 doesn't work for them. They want a structure. They want methodology. They want at least like a one piece of paper, right? Like defining and describing what they need to do. So it's very, very interesting getting to know people. And that's what I learned when that specific direct report gave me that feedback.
Well, I really love how you, one, took the feedback and did something with it. Two, it seems as if you have a continuous desire to become more self-aware and then get to know the people you work with, those that you lead, so that there is a respect for individual differences, and everyone gets to learn how to work with the others. I think that's a beautiful thing that you bring to your employees. I know in the work that I do, and I assess people, that's one of the things that I do on a daily basis. I'm assessing different individuals and doing debrief sessions of individuals and then helping teams understand one another. I know that coachability from a leadership standpoint is one of the best things that you can have, because if you are not coachable, then you cannot, it's hard to be self-aware, and it's hard to shift the way you interact with others based on their needs. So I applaud you on that. I love that.
Yeah, and the name of the tool is Insight Discovery. That's the name of the tool. I said it wrongly at the beginning. I put innovation. It's Insight Discovery.
Okay. And we can always put a link or something like that in a description so that people can learn more about it.
Yes.
Because tools like this help us become
that
better.
Will be nice. Yes, if you Google that, you're gonna find a ton of information describing those colors as well.
Love it. Thank you for that resource. The next question I have for you, and this is going to take you looking back over your career a bit. When you look back over your career and you look at all the different leaders that you interacted with and worked with, was there one leader that really stood out for you, made an impression on you? If so, who was it and why?
Yes. Yeah. I think I have one of the leaders that they have the biggest impact in my career. His name is Jerry Sushuwiki. He is a Jewish/Argentinian boss that I had back in 2007 to 2012. So I was under his leadership probably like around 5 years directly reporting to him. But because before I was in his group, but I have another boss in the middle. So if I count my entire experience with him, it was almost like 8 years working under his, leadership. And 3 things that I love about him, right? First of all, he was a people person. And I always say people person, right? It sounds like redundant. But to the piece of the empathic, that guy was amazing. Like there is no such a person with more respect. She shows respect to everyone in the office, right? From the CEO to the janitor to the every secretary, administrative, etc. And he treats you with such much importance that he always said, treat people the way that you want people to treat you. Always, and sounds like a cliche because we hear that many, many times. And sometimes even your mom, and my mom was always, saying, you need to say thank you, you're welcome, etc. It's important to have manners, right? Like, because you really, really want to treat people with kind and respect. That's number one. The second piece is like, this message, he always said, when you look for team members, look for someone smarter than you. Sometimes people could feel intimidated, right? Like when you have someone that is smarter than you, never feel intimidated. People that feel intimidation is because they have low autoesteem, right? And he said, no, on the contrary, always have people that knows more than you in certain topics, smarter, etc. Because at the end of the day, that's what a team is all about. Complement and supplement each other, right? Because even though that you keep growing, and at that time I started with him as a senior manager, and then he promoted me to my first director position. I remember when I was in charge for Newell Brands products in Latin America and Canada. He always said, you're not going to know everything all the time. So you need to rely on some people and build trust for the people, right? In order for you to get and learn from them, and you as a leader communicate the vision of your group to the top level, especially when you are in director position, when you really need to communicate that into the high level. So I love that because that's true. That's true. Like sometimes, like people say, oh, but it's knowing more than me. Like people fear about their position, etc. He said, never fear about yourself. And that was the third advice that he gave me, which I've been, following as much as I can. He told me, never stop learning. Never. Go do networking. Go download courses. Go and read a book. Go and approach people and keep learning. And if you don't know to do something, try new things and feel uncomfortable with yourself. So I think that those three examples and recommendation or even tips that he gave me, they're always stuck in my mind. And at that time, I can tell you that is where exactly I was in my managerial position, going from a manager to senior to director to senior director. Those years were extremely important in my career life, right? And I, up to date, I'm still following, those advice.
Well, I'm thinking if it has served you over, you said you started, was it 2007?
2006, I started going on his group, but then I started reporting to him back in end of 2007, beginning of 2008, correct.
So I'm just thinking you have this advice, those three pillars, if you will. It's, you said he was a people person.
Yes.
And when you look for team members, find people smarter than you.
Yes. And then continuous learning.
Yeah, never stop learning.
Never stop learning.
And it's these lessons that he gave you years ago, 15 years ago, are still serving you today.
It's going to be almost like 20 years. Yeah, it's like 17 years ago. Yes.
Okay, so I'm thinking that is incredible. And that shows that those are solid principles that anybody can probably use as they learn and grow in leadership, and even if they have been in leadership for a long time.
And not only that, more relevant than ever, because people person, when we were all locked down, remember when we were locked inside of our house? I remember that Friday before the 16th of March, when they told us, tell your team that they need to work 100% from their home next week. Make sure that everybody picks their computers, a mouse, and every material. We didn't know that 2 years after that, you're going to still working remote and start having conversation of coming back to the office. Let's do hybrid. Let's stay remote. Like the world truly changed. And only people with a lot of skills of people succeed at the beginning of that very traumatic situation. Because I tell you, I have team members with newborns at that time, right? Like babies of 6 months old. That I have people with nervous breakdown. I say, hey, I can work with my baby of 6 months. I feel that I'm not. And you as like, you know what? Close your computer. Take 2 days. Figure it out. Your baby schedule, because probably your baby schedule, you put the baby in the daycare, right? And you don't know well your baby schedule. Go and get back and tell me, Mari, you know what? My best time that I'm going to be super, super productive, it's going to be from 6 in the morning to 3 in the afternoon. Because after that, I need to be full baby. You know what?
Yeah.
We will be adjusting you. And with her, I have other people. I have people stuck in New York by themselves, feeling depression, right? And it is important, you know, like having that opportunity to understand people and open the people to come to you, right? In a way, it makes a lot of difference.
Well, there's a compassion there. There's an actual caring about the well-being of others that I think people can probably feel whether or not it's real and they are psychologically safe, or whether or not it's fake, forced, and just for the moment. But they felt safe enough to be open and share with you. There, it goes back to the transparency you spoke about in communication. You were transparent. They felt safe enough to be transparent. I think that's something we can all remember.
Yeah.
And just allowing people to be people. I know that time period was hard for many. And people wondering, do I have my job? There's
uncertainties.
Yes, there's just people didn't know. But if we keep the lines of communication open and be as transparent and frank as we can be, then everybody wins on all sides.
Yeah.
You mentioned that what was his name? Jerry
Sushewiki. Yes.
So Jerry, yes, I tried to write the last name down, and I don't know what I made a spelling.
Yeah,
so Jerry.
Don't worry, I'll send it to you. Let me tell you, it's one of the last names. It took me like a couple of times to write the name correctly.
Well, you mentioned that he says that you should go out and try new things and download a book, take a course. How do you personally, and keep having that lesson in mind, how do you personally continue to learn and grow as a leader today? What are your favorite methods of learning and growing?
Well, I think you learn a lot from the people, and actually it's so funny because you asked this. I was working with a company almost 15 years, and I decided to quit that company in 2021 to move to this company that does the plans, which is it was like an 180 degrees different compared to my current works. Before, my expertise was more in CPG and appliances and more consumer goods, right? Packaging stuff. And suddenly changed my life to plants. That was a very bold decision. At that time, I was 40 years old. And it's complicated when you make those decisions close to your 50, right? Because you start thinking that you are not up to speed and you are, like changing careers, and that was part of me saying like, I have so much to offer. That at that time, I thought that the company that I was working, even though it's an amazing company, I only have good things to say about the company. At the time, it was not serving my purpose as a person. So when I made my decision to change, that was very intentional. And I changed and I say, I want to go to a more smaller company. I want to make sure that I can, be more active on the on the group of the staff and the C-suite, so I can influence quickly, and I want to be more close to the e-commerce and the digital especially. And I want a product that also help people with the future, like sustainable. So when I talked about plants is all natural. It's nature in your home, right? It's all about like bringing people happiness and cheer the people. So that was actually my biggest example recently of one of the change of how I might want to continue, because I said, as a professional, I know everything that I need to do for marketing, strategy, etc. But it was tough. Learning the industry, learning the competitors, learning the products, more than 4,000 varieties of plants like chismatoglottis and sansevieria, and like those numbers that you say, oh my God, even I can't even pronounce it. Like it was very, but I make the decision to do that. So that's one of my methodologies. Always try new things. I like to try new things, and I'm trying not to be fear about doing that.
So
Another thing that I'm doing lately is like also share my experience with other people, because meanwhile you share your experience, other people share with you back, and sometimes you learn a lot when people share, right? I'm blessed enough to be more extrovert, right? So usually when you approach to people that are more shy or timid, they open up, right? When you ask questions, etc. So I'm trying to networking a lot. And lately, in the past 2 years as well, after COVID, 2022 and this year, actually, I've been doing keynotes as well with marketing group like Richmond's, events in New York, in California, Portada in Miami, and most recently, now that I'm in Puerto Rico, last Saturday, I always said, I started my career in Puerto Rico, but my full career has been, let's say, live in US. So I really want to bring something back to my country. So I have a great friend living in Puerto Rico that she works for a small business companies here in the Fideicomiso. And they invite me to be a speaker with them on Saturday and teach them what step you should do to put together a new brand out there, to work on segmentation, to work on position statement. So I spent like almost 3 hours with more than 50 new people that they have their own startup in different industries. So that was super good. Like I felt it with a lot of great energy. And on top of that, I learned about a lot of their products and services as well.
That is a wonderful way to feed your passion and give back. You started in, I'm just going to say Puerto Rico because I don't pronounce it correctly. Puerto Rico, I try.
You're doing amazing.
Thank you. I'm like, I'll adjust. I love it. I just love how you gave back, and how you see in sharing with others, you actually learn. So there you were, one person sharing. And if you have the opportunity to talk to all 50 people, there are potentially 50 new things you can learn from people because you open yourself up, give of yourself, and allow yourself to receive feedback. I have one last question for you, and that's for anyone that is listening now. If you could give leaders, anyone that wants to improve in their leadership, one piece of advice to help them grow, and maybe you've already shared some of it, but if to end this, if you had to give them one piece of advice, a recommendation, a suggestion to help them grow as a leader or as a person, what would that piece of advice be?
I think resilience, it's something that I want to pet. Why? Because when you're resilient, I'm being telling in this podcast everything that has been positive in my career, right? But there's been a lot of failures, in the middle, or some disappointments moments, right? Where you say, oh, Jesus, why I did this? Or sometimes I did a great job and I was not, rewarded, or I was even demoted in a position actually in my past life. And if you took those failures, because sometimes you're gonna see a lot of failures like in life, you're not always gonna win your first prize, right?
Yes.
But if you don't learn how to turn everything that is, let's say, like I call it mistakes, what things that probably you can improve into something positive with your resilient attitude, then you're going to start developing those grudge and resentments inside of you, right? And then eventually that is going to be affecting you as a leader for the future, because you're going to be living, by those resentments. And unfortunately, some people that maintain that, they tend to have like a more like a toxic.
Mhm.
Meanwhile, when you're resilient, it's just like, you know what? This is life. Life has ups and downs. You need to laugh, flip the page. What's next?
Yeah.
Right? Like, so that resilient with that, I say it with that a smile on your face, that it's critical, because not every time your company is going to live a great moment, right? So leaders that are resilient come back from recessions, come back from bankruptcies. I have been in companies that they've been in bankruptcy, they've been affected by big layoff, and I was lucky enough of not being one of those persons to be laid off, but they changed positions for me, etc., where they need to demoted me in my position because of they being cutting people. So probably you feel at that time very, they demoted me, but you know what? You're still working. They
Yes.
still appreciating you. Think about the other 1,000 people that are out of that door, right? So that resilience and that positivism. I'm sorry, that's when my freaking Spanish and English, the accent is
Yeah.
well, but the optimism, right?
Yes.
As well, is that makes you be as like inspirational leader. And that's where actually you can even eventually transform yourself on a servant leader, right? Because at the end of the day, we want to be a servant leader. We don't want to be a leader because of being a leader. If a leader doesn't serve, it's not true a leader. So anyway, that's my 2 cents.
Well, thank you so much, Mari, for your 2 cents and the time you've spent sharing of your experience over, oh gosh, what, 20 more or so years,
Yes.
and working from the bottom to leading from the bottom to the top, always being open to feedback, sharing yourself with others, and the final message of being resilient. I appreciate your time, and I'm sure everyone's going to get a lot out of this.